7 isometric exercises nobody does that build more muscle than weights. Exercise number 7, Copenhagen plank. The Copenhagen plank is one of the most underrated isometric exercises today and, at the same time, one of the most effective for building real hip strength and protecting the knees long term. The primary muscle worked is the hip adductor, located on the inner thigh, but the exercise also recruits the lateral core, the quadratus lumborum, the gluteus medius, and the knee stabilizers. All of these working simultaneously in an isometric position generates a time under tension that traditional adduction exercises simply cannot replicate. To perform it correctly, lie on your side on the floor, rest the foot of your top leg on a bench or step, and lift your body off the ground, forming a straight line from head to toe. The hip cannot drop even 1 centimeter. The lateral core must be fully activated, as if you were trying to shorten the space between your last rib and your hip bone. The bottom leg can be left suspended in the air to increase the challenge, demanding even more from the adductor of the top leg and the trunk stabilizers. One detail worth highlighting. Studies published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine indicate that adductor weakness is directly associated with a significantly higher risk of groin injuries, especially in sports involving rapid changes of direction. But you do not need to be an athlete to feel the effects. Anyone with weak adductors will feel the hip give way much sooner than it should in this position. The main errors to avoid are letting the hip rotate forward or backward, letting the body line break at the hip, and resting the foot on the bench incorrectly, using only the toes instead of the ankle or shin, which creates instability and removes the load from the right muscles. Also avoid holding your breath, as this compromises core stabilization. For those just starting out, I recommend holding the position for 20 to 30 seconds on each side, performing 3 sets. Over time, progress to 45 seconds and then to 60 seconds per side. Regarding contraindications, people with recent injuries to the hip, groin, or knee instability should consult a professional before including this exercise in their routine. Exercise number 6, L-sit. The L-sit originates from artistic gymnastics and represents one of the best tests of functional strength that exists. Few movements demand so much from so many muscle groups simultaneously in an isometric fashion. The primary muscles worked are the hip flexors, the abdominals, the triceps, the anterior deltoid, the serratus anterior, and the spinal erectors. It is essentially the entire body in simultaneous contraction, with no support point other than the hands. To perform it, rest your hands on parallel bars, on the floor, or on support blocks. Lift your body, extend your legs completely in front of the body, forming a 90-degree angle with the torso, and keep the hips elevated. The shoulders must actively push downward, as if you were trying to move them away from your ears. The core should be in maximum contraction, legs completely extended, and feet in plantar flexion, elongated. You know you are doing it correctly when you feel the hip flexors burning at a level that traditional crunches never produced. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to develop deep core strength and body control that no gym machine can replicate. Regular practitioners can notice significant improvement in lumbar stability and posture within just a few weeks of consistent training. The most common errors are letting the hips drop below the line of the shoulders, bending the knees to make it easier, and letting the shoulders rise toward the ears, which transfers the load incorrectly to the trapezius and removes the work from the serratus and the core. Another frequent mistake is not actively pushing the floor with the hands, which drastically reduces hip elevation. For beginners, start with bent legs, keeping only the hips elevated, which is already challenging enough. Hold for 10 to 15 seconds and perform 3 to 4 sets. Progress gradually until you can extend the legs and reach 20 to 30 full seconds. Contraindications include injuries to the wrists, elbows, or shoulders, as well as active inguinal hernias, since the exercise generates elevated abdominal pressure. Exercise number 5, push-up with isometric hold at the bottom. The push-up with an isometric hold at the bottom is an exercise that seems simple to understand but is brutally difficult to perform with quality. It primarily works the chest, the triceps, and the anterior deltoid. But what makes this exercise especially effective is that the isometric hold is performed exactly at the point of greatest mechanical disadvantage, meaning where the tension on the muscles is at its maximum. This is precisely where most people lose their form and ease off the effort. To perform it, position yourself in the starting position of a standard push-up, hands aligned with the shoulders, body in a straight line from head to heels, core completely firm. Lower yourself to the midpoint of the movement, where the elbows are at approximately 90 degrees, and stop completely. Hold that position without sinking further and without pushing back up. Scapular retraction must be present throughout the movement, with the shoulder blades drawing toward each other and downward, which protects the shoulders and ensures the chest receives the majority of the load. An important anatomical note is worth making here. The upper chest is the hardest region to develop precisely because of its muscular insertion and the angles at which it can be recruited. The isometric hold in the low position, with the push-up performed in the same plane as the body, is one of the most direct ways to generate time under tension in this region without needing any equipment. The main errors are letting the hips rise or drop, which breaks the body line and reduces core engagement, letting the elbows flare too far out to the sides, which overloads the shoulders, and holding your breath, which unnecessarily increases intra-abdominal pressure. Breathe in a controlled and continuous manner throughout the entire isometric hold. I recommend holding the position for 20 to 30 seconds per set, performing 3 to 4 sets with 60 seconds of rest between them. Progress by increasing the hold time each week. Contraindications include injuries to the wrist, elbow, or shoulder, as well as acute phase shoulder impingement syndrome. Before we continue, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Having constant access to science-based information is what will help you progress with long-term health in the world of exercise. Exercise number 4, Superman Hold. The Superman Hold is an exercise that most people know by name, but few perform with the seriousness it deserves. While the gym is dominated by exercises that work the anterior chain, such as crunches, push-ups, and squats, the posterior chain is frequently neglected, and this is precisely where one of the greatest muscular imbalances exists. This exercise directly targets the spinal erectors, the gluteus maximus, the hamstrings, the trapezius, and the posterior deltoid, meaning virtually the entire back of the body in a single isometric position. To perform it, lie face down on the floor. Extend your arms completely in front of you and your legs completely behind you. Simultaneously, lift your arms, chest, and legs off the ground, contracting the entire posterior musculature as much as possible. The knees cannot bend to make the movement easier. The arms must be completely extended, and the head should follow the natural line of the spine without forcing the neck upward. You know you are doing it correctly when you feel the lower back and glutes burning intensely within the first few seconds. Can you imagine the impact this has on posture? Well-developed spinal erectors are directly responsible for keeping the spine upright throughout the day, and lower back pain frequently arises not from excessive effort, but from weakness in this musculature, which is rarely trained directly. I have observed that regular practitioners of posterior chain isometric exercises notice a perceptible improvement in posture within just a few weeks. The most common errors are forcing the neck upward, which compresses the cervical spine, bending the knees to achieve a higher leg elevation, and performing the movement dynamically instead of holding the static position, which eliminates the primary isometric benefit. Another frequent error is not actively contracting the glutes, leaving all the work to the lower back. Hold the position for 20 to 30 seconds per set, performing 3 sets. Progress to 45 seconds as the weeks go by. People with acute phase lumbar disc herniation or a history of cervical injury should consult a professional before practicing this exercise. Exercise number 3, wall squat. The wall squat is perhaps the easiest isometric exercise to perform anywhere, and at the same time, one of the most effective for developing muscular endurance in the quadriceps and joint stability in the knees. It is the type of exercise that seems simple in the first 30 seconds and gradually reveals its true difficulty as time passes. The primary muscles worked are the quadriceps, the gluteus maximus, and the hip adductors, with participation from the ankle stabilizers and the core. To perform it, press your back completely against a wall. Lower yourself until your thighs are parallel to the floor, with your knees forming a 90-degree angle. Your feet should be shoulder-width apart, with the knees aligned over the toes, never caving inward. The weight should be distributed evenly between the heel and the central part of the foot. The back remains in contact with the wall the entire time, with no gap between the lower back and the surface. There is no bar to hold, no movement to distract the mind from the burning sensation in the quadriceps. It is a direct relationship between you and the effort, with no easy way out. And this is precisely what makes this exercise so valuable. It trains not only the muscle, but also the capacity to sit with discomfort without seeking the shortest path. For people returning from knee injuries, this exercise is frequently used in rehabilitation protocols precisely because it allows precise load control without joint impact. The most common errors are letting the knees cave inward, not descending to the 90-degree angle, letting the lower back peel away from the wall, and placing the feet too close to the body, which unnecessarily increases pressure on the knees. Also, avoid resting your hands on your thighs to relieve the effort. I recommend starting with 30 seconds per set, performing 3 sets with 60 seconds of rest. Progress to 60 seconds and then to 90 seconds as muscular endurance increases. People with severe patellar chondromalacia or acute knee ligament injuries should avoid this exercise or perform it only under professional guidance. Exercise number 2, static glute bridge. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body, and yet it is one of the most neglected in training programs, especially among men. This is a problem that goes beyond aesthetics. The glutes play a direct role in pelvic stabilization, lower back protection, and force generation in virtually every movement involving the legs. The static glute bridge works exactly this muscle in maximum isometric contraction, while also intensely recruiting the hamstrings, the core, and the spinal erectors. To perform it, lie on your back on the floor with your knees bent and your feet resting on the floor at hip width. Push your hips as high as possible and hold that position. The glutes must be fully contracted, as if you were trying to squeeze a coin between them. The lower back must not hyperarch, which would be a sign that the glutes have stopped working and the lower back has taken over the load. The core should be stabilized, and the knees must point in the same direction as the feet without caving inward or flaring out excessively. There is an additional benefit that few people know about. A well-developed gluteus maximus increases the post-exercise excess post-exercise oxygen consumption effect after training, meaning the elevated oxygen consumption that keeps the metabolism accelerated for hours after the session ends. This happens because it is the largest muscle in the body, and more active muscle mass means greater metabolic demand even at rest. The most common errors are not actively contracting the glutes during the hold, letting the hips gradually drop throughout the set without noticing, hyperarching the lower back at the top of the movement, and positioning the feet too far from or too close to the body, which completely changes the muscle recruitment pattern. Hold the position for 20 to 40 seconds per set, performing 3 to 4 sets. Progress by adding resistance over the hips or elevating the feet on a step to increase the range of work for the glutes. People with acute lower back pain or sacroiliac instability should perform the exercise with caution and, if necessary, with professional guidance. Exercise number 1, isometric calf raise. The calf is a muscle group that deserves far more attention than it receives. It is not without reason that it is called the second heart of the body. The calf musculature actively pumps blood back up to the heart against the force of gravity, and when it is weak, all peripheral circulation is affected. In addition, the calf is composed predominantly of slow twitch fibers, which means it responds better to longer sets and greater time under tension, something that the isometric hold at the top of the movement delivers precisely. To perform the isometric calf raise, position yourself on a step with your heels hanging off the edge, rise to the highest point on the balls of your feet, and hold that position. The weight should be distributed through the big toe, the body completely upright, without leaning forward or backward. The ankles should be aligned, without rotating inward or outward. The higher the step used, the greater the range of motion and, consequently, the greater the muscular recruitment. Performing the calf raise on flat ground without a step is one of the most common and most limiting errors, because it eliminates the complete eccentric phase of the movement and drastically reduces the working range of the soleus and the gastrocnemius. Another frequent error is swinging the body to use momentum, which transfers the load away from the calf. Maintaining balance demands proprioception, and this is an additional benefit of the exercise. It trains body awareness in space, something that has a direct impact on fall prevention, especially as we age. Hold the position at the top for 30 to 45 seconds per set, performing 3 to 4 sets. Progress by increasing the hold time and then extending the set to 60 seconds. There are no significant contraindications for most people, but anyone with acute phase Achilles tendinitis should avoid the exercise until the inflammatory process has resolved. Now, these 7 exercises already provide a complete arsenal for anyone who wants to build real strength without relying on weights. But there is an 8th movement that deserves special mention because it is considered by many gymnastics and calisthenics specialists to be the foundation of all core control. Save this one for last. Bonus isometric exercise, hollow body hold. The hollow body hold comes from artistic gymnastics and is treated by gymnasts as the fundamental core control exercise. It is not an exaggeration to say this. All the core strength that appears in the acrobatics, apparatus work, and aerial positions of gymnastics originates from the pattern of tension that the hollow body teaches the body. The primary muscles worked are the abdominals, especially the rectus abdominis and the transverse abdominis, the hip flexors, the serratus anterior, and the lats, with the entire anterior chain of the body being engaged simultaneously in isometric contraction. To perform it, lie on your back on the floor, extend your arms above your head, and lift your legs off the ground, keeping them completely extended. The lower back must be pressed against the floor, with no space between it and the surface. The ribs need to be down and in, without flaring upward. The entire body forms a kind of hollow shell, as the name suggests, arms and legs elevated, but contact with the floor is minimal, concentrated only at the lower back pressed into the ground. You know you are doing it correctly when you feel the abdominals working at a depth that most core exercises never reach. And do you know why this happens? Because the transverse abdominis, which is the deepest muscle of the abdominal wall and the primary stabilizer of the spine, is only recruited intensely when the lower back is actively pressed against the floor during the exercise. Squats, deadlifts, and other compound movements recruit this muscle indirectly, but the hollow body targets it directly and intentionally. The main errors to avoid are letting the lower back arch off the floor, which is the most common mistake and one that practically eliminates the benefit of the exercise, flaring the ribs upward, holding your breath, and bending the knees to make the position easier. If the lower back cannot stay on the floor with the legs extended, raise the legs higher to reduce the lever arm and gradually lower them as the core gains strength. For beginners, I recommend starting with the legs elevated to approximately 45 degrees, holding for 10 to 15 seconds per set, performing 3 sets. As you advance, progressively lower the legs and increase the time to 20 and then 30 seconds. People with acute phase lumbar disc herniation or a history of cervical pain should pay extra attention, since the position with the arms overhead can increase pressure in certain regions of the spine. If you enjoyed this and want to discover stretches practiced by the Japanese to reverse years of poor posture and pain, we have a video appearing on screen right now showing each one of them in detail. Make sure to check it out. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and God bless you, my friend.